Yeah, I mean, I can't say I'm surprised because I did say that I thought this would happen a couple months ago. It just when I looked at Steve's football card, if you want to call it that, if you just let's say you type in Steve Wilks and you look at his Wikipedia, let's just say, and you realize the guy has been everywhere. I mean, he's been absolutely everywhere. So I mean, it's not like you couldn't picture him being somewhere else. You know what I'm saying? It's like he's been, I mean, he's okay. So he starts his coaching career in 1995. Okay. Just since 1995, he's been DC at Johnson C. Smith, DC at Savannah State, head coach at Savannah State, DB coach at Illinois State, DB coach at App State, defensive coordinator at East Tennessee State, defensive back coach at Bowling Green, defensive back coach at Notre Dame, secondary coach at UW, defensive back coach for the Bears, defensive back coach for the Chargers, defensive back coach for the Panthers, assistant head coach with the Panthers, defensive coordinator with the Panthers, Arizona Cardinals head coach, defensive coordinator with the Browns, defensive coordinator with Missouri, defensive passing game coordinator and secondary coach with Carolina, interim head coach for Carolina, defensive coordinator with the Niners. He's had 20 different jobs. 20. That's 20 since 1995. That's a ton. I mean, does that seem strange to anybody else but me? I mean, it's 2024. You've had 20 different jobs since 1995. That to me said this guy's going to keep moving.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, it works for a year or does a year and a half, and then he moves. So I don't know. Is it Steve or is it all these schools and teams that decide after a year that they want to go in a different direction? I don't know.
I just don't think. I mean, again, he's good. He has experience, but maybe he's just not good enough to stay around. And what Kyle said today was just isn't a good fit. I don't think he was a good fit. Their defense, look, you added Hargrave, Chase Young, Randy Gregory. You added a lot, and I feel like the defense didn't get better. They were good at times. They just didn't generate enough pressures. There was times where the defensive line was like, where are they? The secondary got better. As you rattled out all those teams, he had a lot of DB coach experience. That's what he is. So I feel like Lenore and Mooney, they benefit from him. But overall, the defense I don't think was as good as it could have been. In the playoffs, they averaged a lot more points. I think it was like 27 points in the playoffs, given up compared to like 18, 19 in the regular season. So there was, a little fall down in the playoffs. And the other thing is, Kyle said that it was the linebackers. He wasn't really keen with how he coached them up. So, it just it wasn't a fit for Kyle. Again, earlier in the season, you remember after the Minnesota game, he says he's going to have a talk with, Wilks. And that's not a good sign. When you say you're going to be talking to your DC, and he pulled him from the booth down to the field, it just never seemed to be this great marriage. And you cut your ties early. And now there's a bevy of options. And again, who can they get? There's guys, there's names. Vrabel's the big name. You got Pete Carroll's available. You got Anthony Lynn's son out there in UCLA. You got Chris Kosturek in-house. There's rumors for, Bill Belichick, although I don't think that's going to happen. Richard Sherman. There's guys that Kyle can grab that might be able to push this team over the top. It wasn't Steve Wilks. It just didn't work out. And you're right. All those teams that he went through, it just shows that he doesn't have stability.
Or, I mean, it's weird. Or it shows that people want him, and then after a very short amount of time, they want to go in a different direction.
Yeah, he wears his
welcome. So either maybe he wears out his welcome, or is it possible that he doesn't see eye to eye, or maybe he's difficult to deal with? I don't know. I always found him to be very easy to deal with, and very professional. They were fourth in the NFL in points allowed per game. They were eighth in the NFL in yards allowed. So it's a top ten defense that he coordinated as far as total defense. It was top five in points allowed. So it's not like he had some disaster run. They only give up 17 points a game. But the key for me is there was multiple games. I think of the Cincinnati game and a couple others where he dialed up pressure and then had a soft coverage behind it.
Mhm.
Well, are you guys talking to one another? I mean, your front has to match your back end. If you're going to play pressure and demand the ball out fast, and then you're going to play a soft zone behind it, you're just going to have, in this case, Joe Burrow quickly check it down to somebody. And that's what he did. And he did it all day.
Mhm.
And there was no coordination there. So that to me bothered me, especially since when I asked him late in the year, I figured, well, maybe Kasarik is calling the games up front and he's calling the coverage on the back end. He's like, no, I'm making all the calls on the coverage up front. Well, then if you're making all the calls on the coverage up front, then how come your coverage and your rush and your rush plan and your coverage plan don't seem like they're aligned with one another? I mean, you can't hurry a quarterback up and then give him open players underneath.
Yeah, the cover zero against Patrick Mahomes, I think was the death of him. You can't give Patrick Mahomes a 10-yard clearance on his receivers in the Super Bowl. You just don't do it. Like I get it because there's a lot of people are saying, "Oh, I can't believe Kyle's using this guy as a scapegoat." He only allowed 19 points. The point of the matter is he didn't stop Mahomes when it mattered, and we saw it throughout the season. They just seem to have this disconnect. And again, like I don't know, I feel like his defensive scheme just didn't vibe with the 49ers. And you said, they were top five defensive scoring, like great stats. But Larry, if you have this talent on this defense, you better be a top five defense, top 10 defense. Like if you don't, that's a problem. So yeah, there's a lot of pressure being a DC on a great team like this. Like you better be a top defense. So of course he's gonna have one of the better defense because you have Bosa, you have Fred Warner. The talent is there, so they're gonna play great despite. But it's the big moments, the coverages that he made gave up big games. Like again, Kirk Cousins tore this team apart. Joe Burrow, like you said, ripped this team apart, and then Patrick Mahomes in the biggest stage when it mattered most just marched down the field like it was no problem. So I can understand why you fired it. I just don't see him as a quality or a championship quality defensive coordinator, in my opinion. There's a
Is he
lot.
being is he being scapegoated?
I don't
Because
think.
I guarantee you, like I see that Grant's on and probably starting right now, and I guarantee you he's asking that question. Is is it a fair question to say that Kyle Shanahan, or is it a fair statement to say that Kyle Shanahan scapegoated Steve Wilks for his own failures in the Super Bowl?
I mean, it's fair, but at the same time, you just lost the Super Bowl. Something has to change. Like you have to make some change. So what is the change? Kyle's not going to fire himself. There had to be a move after this because bottom line, you had the Super Bowl. You really had it. But obviously, the offense should take some blame too. Kyle should take some blame there. But I just don't think he thinks moving forward this year to get back to the top of the mountain, Steve Wilks is going to be good enough to get him back where he needs to be. So I think it's granted. I don't think he's being a scapegoat. Again, his defense was inconsistent throughout the season. I mean, you have that much talent, and at times we question the defensive line. There was so many times where we're like, what is this D line? Are they ever going to get sacks? But the amount of money they paid this defensive line, they should have done better, in my opinion. I don't think it was unjust. I think the defensive firing of Steve Wilks was justified. And again, you gave up touchdowns in the grandest time of the season. You proved you couldn't beat Andy Reid. And I think Kyle Shanahan needs to find a guy that he thinks can help him do that.